Okay, family, this Fry here with episode 10 of Slight Research. Today we're going to touch on the Great Divide. By that, I mean the Berlin Conference of 1881. You got to know the grow. Facts, not fiction. The Great Divide. The scramble for Africa, also called the partition of Africa or conquest of Africa, was the invasion, annexation, division, and colonization of most of Africa by 7 Western European powers during a short period known as the New Imperialism between 1881 and 1914. This conference was called by German Chancellor Bismarck to settle how European countries would claim colonial land in Africa and to avoid a war among European nations over African territory. All the major European states were invited to the conference. Following the Berlin Conference, there was still little exploration into the interior of Africa beyond gaining initial treaties. Most Europeans continued to stay on the coastal regions while a few missionaries followed rivers inland to find Christian converts. By 1900, though, more Europeans moved into the African interior to extract raw materials such as rubber, palm oil, gold, copper, and diamonds. These natural resources made Africa a vital resource for the European economy. Although most of these African colonies were controlled by nations, the Berlin Conference allowed King Leopold II of Belgium to become the sole owner of the vast area that is today the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa. This area was given to Leopold by the other European powers with the intent that this be an area for free trade for all Europeans in Africa. Leopold agreed to this stipulation as well as bringing Christian missionaries to the interior of this area. But in practice, he kept out most other European traders as he granted concessions to various corporations to exploit the region's resources. In 1908, it was revealed that under King Leopold's instructions, native people of the Congo were forced to farm wild rubber as a form of tax payment to the colonial government. Those who were unable to reach their rubber quota often had a hand or a foot chopped off or were killed by Leopold's agents. Once news of these abuses of power were brought to the public light, King Leopold was stripped of his colony, and the vast Congo region was ruled by the Belgian government until it became independent in 1960. By 1914, 90% of Africa had been divided between 7 European countries, with only Liberia and Ethiopia remaining independent nations. Many of the boundaries drawn up by Europeans at the Berlin Conference still endure today, with little regard to natural landmarks or historic, ethnic, or political boundaries established by the Africans themselves. The disregard of these boundaries, most of which were retained after independence, often continues to generate conflict in Africa today. African nations began to emerge from colonial rule, first with Ghana, which gained its independence in 1957. By 2000, virtually all the former colonies had gained independence. Prior to the era of imperialism, Africans lived in a variety of ways. There were large kingdoms and sprawling urban centers, and there were smaller villages headed by elders and chiefs. In the 14th and 15th centuries, you had great wealth in Africa, with kingdoms such as Timbuktu and Mali. Great kings such as Mansa Musa, who still to this day is considered the wealthiest man who ever lived. Tales like these were heard about around the world. The lust for these riches and power is what many believe is the reason for Europe's violent exploitation of other people's God-given property. When the Moorish leader Tariq, an African, conquered Spain and Portugal in the year 711, they began to build the nation. establishing the first schools, libraries, paved roads, and sewer systems. By the time the Moors left Spain and Portugal in 1453, the country was better. Not knowing the same countries, Spain and Portugal, would turn around and be some of the main players in the exploitation of Africans. So many in Africa to this day still don't have electricity, even though the continent has the majority of the world's resources. You have to know to grow. Facts, not fiction.